thank you very much indeed for organising this meeting and for inviting me to speak to you. I must admit, when I heard that Frank was talking, that allowed me to take the liberty of having a more personal look at the whole issue of the death penalty, because I knew Frank would do such a, as he always does, such a very good intellectual analysis of the Scott Rush case and the case of the Oz 9. And I've taken the indulgence of, if you let me, of talking personally about my own visit through life on the issue of the death penalty. And I'd like to recount to you fairly briefly why I feel so strongly against the death penalty, essentially in personal terms rather than in the usual terms that I talk about it, which is in criminological academic terms. But when I thought to myself, what was I going to talk about tonight, I thought I would recount the experiences which have made me feel even more strongly than Frank. Frank, I can't personally think of one situation at all where I would allow the death penalty. Not with Hitler, not with Saddam Hussein, and not with the worst serial killers that I've met and seen and looked at their eyes. And I think a whole lot of experiences have come to play for me to believe this. And it began with my mother in that very conservative town of Christchurch in New Zealand. My mother used to read a lot of crime novels and true crime stories, and I remember when she recounted to me the story of Timothy Evans. And for those of you who can't remember, Timothy Evans was hung by the British government in 1950 for a murder, and then it was discovered that the murder was actually committed by a serial killer called Christie. The British government then gave him a posthumous pardon, which of course was very nice, but too late for Timothy Evans. And that event stuck in my mind very strongly, the fact that the death penalty can go terribly, terribly wrong. And I think the second experience which I remember was when I was in university, again in New Zealand. We had a sociology lecturer called Richard Thompson who tried to give the pros and cons of the death penalty, and being a very conservative town, most of the students in my class, despite the arguments which showed that the death penalty didn't deter, that mistakes were made, still voted for it. Until Mr. Thompson started talking about the psychological and physical realities of the death penalty, and in deference to Scott Rush's parents, I don't want to go into the details. Suffice to say that there is no humane way to kill another human being, despite the antiseptic aura which the state, any state, gives around the death penalty. Hanging can go disastrously wrong. Electrocution can go wrong. Shooting can go wrong. And so can gassing. There is nothing nice or clean about the death penalty, and as soon as people realise that, the better. We will never understand the psychological pain that the Oz 9 face when they think of that possibility, or their parents, or their friends, or their relatives. But I know that Mr. Thompson's talk had a profound effect on me, and I must say also on many other students. As Clarence Darrow, the very famous lawyer, said once, questions of this sort, that is, questions about death penalty, are often settled by emotion and not by reason. And you can throw up all the rational arguments, but until you hit them with the emotional reasons, most people won't take any notice at all. At least that's what I've noticed. And the third, I could go through a lot of reasons, but the third personal thing which happened to me was when I came to Australia as a very young lecturer here. I met a man called Dr. Alan Bartholomew, who was a psychiatrist working in Pentridge Prison, and Frank, I think, probably knows him or has met him. And Alan Bartholomew was one of the original witnesses to the hanging of Ronald Ryan. And Alan, I'm sure he won't mind me, he's dead now, saying, drank quite a lot and was known to tell very good stories, very true stories. And I remember drinking with him with another friend of mine, and he told me about how he felt when he saw the hanging of Ronald Ryan. And again, I don't want to go into it in detail here, but I know it had a very profound effect on me. So that was one thread, those three incidents, and there were others, but was one real impact it had on me in terms of my views about the death penalty.